And welcome back to the Ultra Running Guys. You got Jeremy Reynolds and Jeff Winchester of the Ultra Running Guys. And the reason that we're here is to help you take your next step in your ultra running journey. If you've been around for a while, you know we started this podcast in 2020. And historically, it's been interview style. But about a year ago, we started doing race spotlights because part of knowing your next step is figuring out what you want to put on your race calendar. So we're really excited about this race in particular. And I'll kick us off with a story when we get going. But Jeff, tell us who we're talking to.
We got lots of stories to talk about with this one, but we are heading down to Florida for this race and looking forward to it personally because I'm actually going to participate in it as well. It's a very popular 100-mile race that takes place in January in Lakeland, Florida, and it is called the Long Haul 100. So if you've been around the ultra running scene and you've heard of that race before, you were not surprised to hear it when we said Lakeland, Florida. The 100-miler, though, consists of 6 16.7-mile loops, and runners have 32 hours to complete the race. However, if you would like to use this race as a Western States qualifier, which it is, you have to complete the race in 30 hours. And so it does attract runners for both purposes that are looking for a flat January run in Florida, as well as a Western States qualifier. And so the Long Haul 100 is held in Colt Creek State Park in Lakeland, Florida. It's Trail Sister approved and is great for runners looking to take on their first 100 and also veterans that flock, like I said, to this race. That's all I got. So we're going to now get to speak to Andy Mathews, who is the race director for the Long Haul 100. I almost called it the Lakeland 100 because I've said Lakeland so many times, but Andy Mathews, welcome to the show. Let's talk about the long haul.
Thanks for having me, guys. Really appreciate it.
So look, we're excited to talk about this race. We were talking kind of before we got going. You know, this is a Harvey Lewis favorite. I think he just got his 500 miles, so fifth finish. But one of the things that's really special to us, and we actually just spent the weekend with a good friend of ours, Rusty Smith. And if anybody's been around the podcast for a while, they know that name, they know the story. If you haven't been, I highly recommend going to check out episode 71 with Rusty Smith. We talk about Max's 5, and there's a big story about the long haul in that. So I won't get sidetracked. But with that, obviously, relationships, people, community is really big to you, and it shows. And so, Andy, one of the questions we like to start off with before we get kind of into the tactical stuff, what is your personal favorite thing about the Long Haul 100?
The way that the Florida ultra running community has supported it. My wife Amy and I we took over the race, and our first year hosting the race was 2019. We took it over right after the race was happened in 2018. So like you mentioned, Harvey has 6 finishes there. We have volunteers that have 6 finishes with us. We have volunteers that have volunteered out there every year that we have hosted the race. Our good friend of mine, his name is Andrew Barrett. He is a fabulous runner. He finished Cocodona last year and was the first Florida finisher from that. He's finished Western States. He's finished Tahoe 200. And he does a really good job running our race, but he doesn't want to run it anymore. He likes staffing aid station 2. That's his thing. And he works at my daughter, who's now 29, also works that aid station. So the way the community has come together to support us is my favorite thing. And it comes back to the first year that we hosted the race in 2019. In 2018, they had 19 finishers in the event. And when we took it over, I'm pumping the guys at Western States because I have another race, the Croom Fools Run, that I've had since 2004. And it was Florida's last Western States qualifier. But then Western States did away with 50 milers as qualifiers, and I've been trying to create a Western States qualifier ever since. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that they told us is, if it's a 100-mile race, you have to have 100 finishers, at least. It's got to be one of the biggest 50 races or whatever in the United States. Well, the year that before we took it over, they had 18 finishers. So that's a long way from 100. But the community supported us. We instituted some pretty cool incentives. In our very first year hosting the race, we had 118 finishers.
Wow.
And then in 2020, we've been a Western States qualifier then and ever since. And we've never had fewer than 100 finishers. Last year, I think we had pretty close to 200 finishers. So, a pretty big jump. And that's, Amy and I put our hearts into it. We do a good job. I feel we do a good job. And obviously the community does too. But, it's the way that they have supported us. And my friend Andrew that I mentioned earlier, he said people would come into the aid station and they'd want to quit. And they'd say, we have to finish for Amy and Andy. We have to finish for Amy and Andy. And we did. We got enough finishers. And that's just been a fantastic story. And we want to keep that up. And now the Western States aspect doesn't matter as much to us as putting on a good race for the community, but still pretty darn important. And we're still very proud of that.
What a neat story that people took on the why to propel the race forward.
Yeah, but you jumped 100 finishers. That's
from 18. Look, the race was so small. At one point, I came in third place and first in Masters. Look, I used to be a fairly decent runner, but I was never that good. I never was, on Harvey's heels. A friend of ours, I was on a podcast with him when I think we were doing long haul predictions, and he's run long haul several times. And the host says, "You guys have something in common." And I'm like, "Well, we got a lot in common." He goes, "Yeah, but you've got something long haul in common." I'm like, "What?" He goes, "You both have finished third." And I'm like, "Yeah, but Jeff did it when there was 200 people in the race. I did it when there was, I think there were 20 finishers that year." And hey, I'll take a third place finish anytime.
Andy, all I know is you stood on the podium.
That's right.
Yes, I did. And,
well, that's right. But it just goes to show so much, like you said, it sounds like you pour your hearts into this, and the fact again that people were using that as their reason to move forward for you guys, hopefully just gives a taste to anybody listening of what to expect when they show up. And speaking of what to expect, so let's talk about, we talked about in the opening that it's 6 loops of just over 16 miles, right? But what can people expect in terms of the trail? Is it technical? Is it open? Give us kind of a quick overview of the course.
All right. Well, it's actually just under 17 instead of just over 16. I put the math in Mathews, so I did that math. I was very proud last year when people would finish in their watches. We're pretty consistent in reading between 100.3 and 100.6. I was like, you want it to be over 100. Nobody wants to read 99 point something. But in that 16.75 mile loop, it is all trail. It is beautiful, flat, shaded. And this sounds like an advertisement. It kind of is, but it's also 100% true. The footing is fantastic. Now, last year, was the year of the mud. We had unseasonably just rains in January. And so there was a lot of mud on that course. But interestingly, the finish rate stayed about the same at about 70%, because I think the mud slowed people down. But by and large, it's a shaded, and it is very flat. I wish there was some hills on it, but it is very flat, shaded, and excellent footing. There are maybe 3 or 4 routes on the course. I'm talking to the park ranger now to try and get him to remove those roots. He said they're important to the trees. So, I don't know if we'll get that done. I secretly go out there every week and remove a rock or two just to make sure there are no rocks on it. But really, the footing is good. Road shoes are fine for this race. But it's pretty enough, and there's enough wildlife out there where, even though it's not technical, it doesn't get boring. Not in my opinion. It does not get boring.
So is it, just to kind of further paint the picture of the course itself? It's well maintained. Obviously, you're picking up rocks even now. It doesn't sound single track, right?
It is. There really is one section towards the beginning at like mile 2 to 3 that that is almost single track, but most of it is double track. Almost all of it. There, like I said, there's a 1 mile section that could almost be considered single track, but two people that don't hate each other could run side by side, and that's also the only section where there are really any routes. And, but it's marvelous. There, you run by a few creeks on there. One creek is called Gator Creek, and there's a good reason why. Every time I've run by there, I've seen alligators, so that's kind of cool. And there's also some otters in there. And then people have asked me about, and there's a lake at the start finish, and they're like, can we jump in the lake at the finish? Like, yeah, we don't really advise that, because the park ranger said, yeah, there's some gators in there, and they're not terrified of humans, so you don't really want to do that. So unfortunately, we don't let people take the victory plunge in the lake afterwards, but it is tempting.
I remember running at Yeti at night, and there was a section where there was cows. And I remember thinking, I don't know where these cows are, but I know they're close. Gators is a whole different story at night.
They are not allowed on the course. We have signs everywhere. They're not allowed. Yeah.
They have little red beady eyes at night too when the lights just on them. You can
Appreciate you having that conversation
Absolutely.
with them. Let them know.
And I go through the whole thing about how to stop a gator if he's coming at you. You have to thrust the hands out, palms out, and go, absolutely not. And the gator is then forbidden to approach you. But you have to be very firm with the.
That's it. It's the confidence in the stop.
I'm told this works.
That's fantastic.
I'm gonna die.
Told it works. Absolutely not.
Good luck. Good luck.
It's all in the clinic. It's all in the pre-race clinic. So
I thought because it was in January, we wouldn't have that type of wildlife.
It's Florida.
He's laughing at me.
Yeah, well, those are the South Carolina and Georgia gators come to Florida for the winter. So,
that's right.
Yeah.
At least there's no snakes, I hear.
Yeah, not a single one.
Perfect. This is my kind of race.
You just slide straight to your face.
Yeah,
keep moving. Let's keep moving. Keep moving.
It's in the woods, but yeah.
So let me ask this, because we talked about the amount of finishers. I'm assuming this is a pretty well supported race. We just talked about great footing. Yeah. So it seems like just a great way to succeed in either your first, right, or going to give a shot, or trying to get that Western States qualifier.
Right.
That being said, I'm sure you've seen some stuff. What do people tend to underestimate about this run?
Oh, people go too fast because the footing is so good. And, in January in Florida, cool weather, but not freezing cold if they're from, Ohio or Michigan, that we get a lot of runners from both those states. And it's warm for them. It feels really good for them. And so some people really take off too fast. And it doesn't matter how many times you warn somebody, they're feeling good and they go too fast. And I try to tell them, hold back and reward yourself later in the race. So when you get to lap 5 and 6, run as fast as you want, but put the governor on until then. So that really is the biggest danger, is that people tend to start out too fast. And you can't tell somebody you're risking your race because they feel so good while they're doing it. But I've seen a lot of people run a really fast 60 miles there and then drop. And our finish rate is generally about 70%, that's a very good finish rate from what I've seen. I've finished almost 50 100s myself, but I've also had probably 10 drops with my 50 finishes. And I see it all the time where, I kind of look at somebody and I'm like, oh, I'll be catching that person around mile 60 or whatever.
Right. So
if I could, that's one thing that I really tell people, that's the biggest danger of that course. It's not a twisted ankle. It's not being attacked by a bear. It's running too fast.
Notice he didn't say not attacked by a gator.
He didn't say gator
went
or
with
snake.
He went with a bear.
Why would anybody be attacked with a gator after I give them my nugget?
That's true.
Absolutely
That's true.
not. Yeah.
No, I think that's great. And I won't go into the whole spiel about flat courses because we've talked about it a lot, but I do think that's the curse of a flat course is that there's no natural walk spots.
Exactly.
So,
You've got to, and at long haul, more than about any other race, I hear the gym bosses going off a lot, for the interval, run 3, walk 1, whatever. I hear that a lot at long haul, and it's really smart. It's kind of like the Kogalla lights. You hate them, and the gym boss, you hate it, but man, is it effective. They're so effective, and I've started using one, and I'm a better runner than I was this time last year, because of that.
So if you're listening, take heed of those words, and if it's your first time hearing about a gym boss, go check it out. It's for walk run intervals, and we've heard about it a lot on the show. And I do think it's
$25. Yeah. So
and I think that's important to kind of expand a little bit. We talk about there's a variety of different 100-mile races out there, and some races are set up because of their elevation gain and stuff. And if you're looking at doing a run walk type approach, a race that has a lot of vert in it is not designed very well for that because your run walk is really strategically placed around the hills. But if you have been training by run walk or you're looking to get your first 100-mile finish, having a run walk strategy and pairing that with a flatter race generally will set you up for success.
Yep.
And so this is a great race for something like that. It's also interesting because we've talked to the race director from Tunnel Hill 100, and one of the things that he liked about his race, it sounds very much like your same mentality here, is he wants people to finish. Now, every race director wants people to finish. Don't mishear that, but he's like, I could design a hard ultra just for the sake of it being hard and really, really challenge people. He goes, or I can help come up with a race that's designed in a way that can help them see success. And it sounds very much like your same attitude that you have here as well.
Without a doubt. And I mean, I've run both kinds where it's, I have a good friend of mine that his races are torture and they're meant to be, but that when you're signing up. And it's in that, and there's a place for that. When we took over long haul, we tried to think of how can we make longer loops? How can we make it harder, more technical? And then we realized that that's not what people wanted out of our race. They wanted one where they could have a lot of interaction with runners. They wanted out and back sections, and they wanted to be able to finish. And we definitely are trying to get as many finishers as possible. Now, when we first started, we knew we needed those finishers for Western States. But, now here we are in late May, race isn't until January, and we already have, I don't know, somewhere between 210 and 215 people registered. So we're going to get 100 finishers. We know that. But we'd like to have everybody that starts finish, as long as it's safe and they really want to finish. We're going to do our best to get them there. And gosh, our aid stations, we have 3 aid stations on the course. One you hit twice. One is in the area called group camp. It's because it's an area designed for group camping. That's why we've named it group camp. And they hit that aid station twice. We have a staff there that they'll fix feet and do that kind of stuff. And then our aid station that's in the woods, which we call aid station 2, and it's the 3rd aid station they hit, so that's why it's called aid station 2. Anyway, people come in there and and that's the only time they really feel deep in the woods, and that's where they think about, do I want to keep going? Well, our aid station captain there, he'll sit people down and say, sit, and I'm going to come back and talk to you in just about a minute, and he'll say, look, you've got 3 miles to get to the finish, and then you have to do another loop, but you're not going to worry about the other loop. You're going to worry about this 3 miles, and you're going to get there because we're not going to drive you out. So you got to get there one way or the other. You might as well change your attitude and but they really nurture the runner, and then they tell them, look, we can't miss you until you leave. and we want to miss you. So they really do help. They help in the cause, and we, we have one guy, Thomas Grinovich, who's finished our race 11 times. I sent you a picture of this beautiful big red belt buckle. It's about the size of a dinner plate. And he's the only one so far that's got it. But last year at Colt Creek was his 11th finish. And he's like, I'm not feeling it. And it's like, they're like, you don't have anything to prove. You finished this race 10 times. We don't have a special 1,100 mile buckle for you, but you're Tommy Grinovich. You finished this race. And and afterwards he said, them talking to me got me going. And he said, and it wasn't my best time ever, but he did finish the race. And, it was a great emotional, fun moment when he finished, after we all thought he was going to drop, but our aid station people kept him going. So I will definitely plead guilty to us wanting and helping people finish the race. And Jeff, if we have to help you, we'll help you.
Amen, man.
Yes, sir.
That's right. Help me with the animals.
That's so special though. And my favorite part was the way you went over, and I heard the little chuckle of, it's the third aid station. That's why we call it aid station 2.
Right. I was it's like Mathews. Here we go.
Yes. Well, see, because the other one you hit it twice, but
right.
So anyway,
it's still one.
It's still still number one.
The second that we physically set up. Look, Amy names the aid stations, and there's some things that I just accept.
Yeah, perfect. Makes total sense.
1A and 1B.
Yep. So, okay. So let's talk a little bit about that. So obviously it sounds like the personnel at the aid stations are top notch, right? And get joy out of helping people move forward. What about the aid stations themselves? If I'm preparing to come to this race, what can I expect? And is there anything I need to plan on my own, or what am I going to find when I get there?
Always good to plan on your own. There are drop bag locations where you can have whatever special thing that you want. And we put drop bags at aid station 1, which we've said you hit twice. And then at the start finish, which you hit every loop. So that means you've got 12, 18 shots at your drop bag. And really, you could do it all without our help. But our aid stations, we have regular that you see at a lot of races: peanut butter and jelly, turkey avocado wraps, chips, 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 pickles, and then we'll also have vegan quesadillas. We certainly embrace the vegetarian and vegan. It's become a bigger part of the sport, and it's a sport, and that's something we welcome. Doesn't hurt that my daughter's a vegetarian, and so she makes sure that at aid station 2, aid station you hit at aid station 2, they specialize. They're known as the vegan quesadilla aid station, but we have vegetarian options at all of the aid stations. And then at night we'll have coffee, ramen, potatoes. We'll have hot food at night. So, and also if there's something special that you want, shoot, let me know, and we'll either say, hey, that sounds great, you should bring that, or possibly we'll have it for you. But really, nutrition should not shoot anybody in the foot, because like I said, you've got 18 shots at your own drop bag. And then we really do try to take care of it. If there's something that somebody wants, then we will try to have it for them. So, soda I didn't mention, but that's at the aid stations also. That's the only time I ever drink sodas during these races, and I do drink them during the races.
You pretty much have to. It's like not racing if you don't have a little soda. All right. So then with that, support is there, but one of the things that, some people love doing these self-supported. I personally love having family, and to me, that's part of the experience. I imagine that this is pretty easily accessible. So talk to us about, if I'm bringing a crew, what does that look like? What's the area that they're primarily going to hang out at? Are the aid stations accessible by them? That kind of information.
Gotcha. It can, I mean, I'm like, sometimes I like to go just fly under the radar, do it all by myself. And generally that's when I'm not sure I'm going to succeed. I don't want to be dragging somebody along with me. But then again, my wife has become such she's really gotten good at the whole crew thing. And so I love having her with me. And our race is easy to go either way. If people bring crew and family, a lot of people will just hang out at the group camp area because they see them at mile 4 and then again at mile 9 on every loop. But then it's also an easy buzz to get to the start finish. And it's a very drivable road and it's only a couple mile drive. It's seven miles for the runner, but it's a 2-mile drive if somebody wants to flip back and forth between the group camp aid station and the start finish. And those are really so you got 3 shots, but that's 3 shots on every loop. I mean, I really enjoy the Rocky Raccoon race. I've done that one. I've finished that one 5 times. It's one of like 3 races I have a 500-mile buckle from. And, at Rocky Raccoon, it's pretty much you see your crew and family once every 20 miles. Umstead is another one I've done 3 times. And that's you see your crew family once every 12 and a half miles. Well, we're giving them an easy 3 opportunities to see their family and crew. So, it's very friendly for that situation. And then somebody that comes by themselves, there's places where they can access their car on the course or, virtually on the course. They might have to go 10 or 20 yards off the course, but they can crew out of their car as well as using our very fine aid stations. So we really try to make it easy to finish and fun. This is only our 2nd year at Colt Creek, so we're still dialing that in, but we have already established, like I said, 3 places in a 16.7-mile loop where you can easily see your family and crew.
Great. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it, and my wife is coming with me, and so she is looking forward to being a part of it with Rusty and his family as well. So,
all right.
Yeah, and she'll probably walk back and forth with the 2 miles just because it's not too far of a walk either, because that's something she'd probably enjoy doing. But so tell us about it. You said you got 215 roughly signed up already. Is there a cap for the race?
There is. The cap is 300. So I think we actually, I think we have it capped at 285. So there are still 70 spaces left. And, that could mean 4 months. When something like this drops, sometimes we get a bump and it might be quicker. But then once it fills, like last year was incredible. We sold out way early. I think as people were excited about the new course and then, the move. And even though we doubled our capacity from the year before, we still sold out. We were already sold out by this time last year, but we had a wait list that went up to 100 people, and every single person that was either signed up or on the wait list ended up getting to run the race.
Wow.
We have a very generous rollover policy. I shouldn't be saying this on air, but we do. We have a very generous rollover policy. And you've mentioned Rusty Smith several times, and that was really how we got to meet Rusty. He was going through what he was going through with his family. And he contacted me and said, I just don't know. My training's been crap. I can't focus. He says, and I told him, I said, Rusty, look, we'll give you your money back. I said, but if you find out the week of the race that you want to run and you want to give it a shot, I said, contact me. We'll get you in that race. It turns out, and he's like, man, I've not had a race director make that kind of an offer. And I'm like, it is a business, but it's more than that. It's a passion for Amy and I. And so he contacted us, and he did said, I'm going to give it a shot. And by gum, he finished that race. And my daughter came and from Aid Station 2, and she said, "I want to see Rusty finish," and we all cried together. It was really cool.
That's awesome.
So yeah, very cool.
Well,
So I mean, that's one of the reasons we sold it, because we do have a generous rollover policy, and we've had people in the military that have gotten deployed, and I'm like, no, we're not going to give them a rollover. We'll give them a refund. And again, I really wish more races were like that. I think of it like, what would I want? I mean, I got injured right before a 100-miler last year. I pulled a hamstring. You can't run 100 miles with pulled hamstring. You just can't do it. And this was the week before the event, and I just I had to write it off. There's nothing I could do about it. And then there was another race. I still wasn't ready, and they gave me a nice rollover for that. And I get it if you're struggling, if the race is struggling, that you can't be refunding money, because you have to pay for everything up front. But if you've got a wait list, absolutely, we're going to do that. We're always going to do that, because I think it's the right way to do it.
Awesome. So just for those who are listening, it's a product of time. We're recording this probably 4 weeks before you're actually listening to this, if you're listening to it when it gets dropped. And so if you hear that there's 70 spots available, understand that was a month ago. And so you may want to go on Ultra Sign Up if you're interested in looking at this race, to see where they are at currently at sign up time.
Yeah, we do publish our list, so you can see how many are signed up.
Yep, you can see what's available, and you can see if you want to go ahead and add yourself to the wait list. If it's full, add yourself to the wait list if you want to get in, because it sounds like you probably get in as well. And so don't just assume that it's 70 when you first listen, because of the product of time. One last question on this registration process: do I have to do any qualifying races to get in?
No, you do not. As long as you're 18 years old and you're well trained, there's not a qualifying requirement.
Awesome.
A question I want to ask, especially after, and I'll say this first, I appreciate the opportunity to be able to see you talk about how you feel about these races, talk about the experience with Rusty. You talked before about just kind of pouring your heart and soul. It kind of just comes out of you. It's clear how much joy this brings you, how important it is. And so on that note, I do want to know, what does it mean to you? I mean, and we talked, right? Harvey Lewis, flight cancels, drives himself from Ohio. I mean, you have all these stories and these connections. What does it mean to you that people come do this race that you guys work so hard for?
It's amazing. It is absolutely amazing. Every time, and I'll do this when I see somebody register from Iowa, I'll send them an email, and I'll say, we've never had anybody from Iowa. Thank you so much for trusting us with your race. And it's so cool. And I say, please come say hey to us when you get there, because, I want to know what made you choose our race and all that. Well, like, I live in Iowa and get a chance to go to Florida in January, I'm going. So, but it's great to know that I've been doing this for 20 years now. And that when I can take people and have them see parts of the forest or state park that they haven't seen before, and when they accomplish something that, the logical person wouldn't think would be possible. One of my favorite stories, when I finished Western States for the first time in 2005, and I had the silver belt buckle, which drives some of my friends crazy, because they're like, I'm a much better runner than you. How did you have a silver buckle from Western States? I'm like, well, some of us study the course more and we know shortcuts, but no, it didn't really work. I'm like, well, believe it or not, I used to be a fairly decent runner. But anyway, not growing up in the equestrian lifestyle or anywhere working outside or anything, I didn't own belt buckles. So I get my Western States belt buckle and I need a belt for it. So I'm like, well, where do I get a belt? So I go to the Western store, And so I told the guy, I'm like, I need a belt buckle. I need a belt for my belt buckle. He goes, we can help you with that. And I'm like, well, that's great. He goes, let me see that buckle. And he's looking at it. He goes, what's this from? I said, well, it's this. I would used to be embarrassed to tell people that I ran 100 miles because there wasn't many of us doing it back then. And he says, so you rode your horse 100 miles? And this other guy had been listening. He goes, no, he ran. It used to be a horse race, but he ran 100 miles. And the guy goes, ain't no way no man can run no 100 miles. And I'm like, well, I did. And my daughter, I was driving my daughter in the car, and she was very young then, maybe 10. And she looked at it, she goes, Daddy, look, it says 100-mile endurance run. You need to go back and show that man. I said, no, honey, the story's better if he doesn't believe me. He can tell it to other
awesome.
people. So, I mean, when to me, it's still very special, particularly when somebody runs that first 100-miler. And if I can be a part of that, if I can help them finish, that is great. If I can make somebody's day, make somebody's year, and I'd like to think that I've done that, through 20 years of race directing, that I've really, created some special events. And Amy and I were just talking about that today, because I'm like, honey, what's your favorite thing about the race? And she's like, seeing those people finish. And she goes, and the stories are, the Harvey Lewises are great and we love them, but the stories are in the middle and the back of the pack. And I'm like, absolutely. The stories are in the middle and the back of the pack.
That's awesome.
And I found that out also at Western States, because while I have one sub 24, I also have a DFL at Western States.
Wow.
Very last person to cross the finish line. And it was over the 30 hours. So I didn't get a buckle. I got a medal. I got a huge plaque. I should get it off the wall and show it to you. For being last. But I don't know if you guys recognize this name. Do either of you guys know the name Tim Tweetmeyer?
Tweetmeyer, that sounds very familiar.
He won Western States like 5 times. And he's been the president of Western States for years. I don't think he still is, but he's on the board for Western States, and he's won the race 5 times. And he ran at sub 24 for more than 20 years in a row. He ran sub 24 at Western States.
Wow.
So he's, for that community, it's a pretty big deal. And here I was in last place, and I got like 3 miles to go. And here comes, Tim's already finished the race. And here he comes walking towards me. And I'm like, hey, Tim Tweetmeyer. And he goes, hey, DFL. And I said, how do you, I'm amazed that you can run that race and you're out here. He goes, I just want to tell you that I'm amazed that you can be out here for so long. He goes, what you're doing is harder than what I do. And I'm like, maybe not. It was as hard as that at that point. Is the hardest thing I'd done. But anyway, I was a story to him. It was cool for him to see the guy that was in their last place. So not that there was a place that they could bail me out with 3 miles left, but I had no choice but to finish, because Tim Tweetmeyer had come out to usher me in. So Amy and I aren't the only people that find the great stories at the back of the pack. But you do see people overcoming that adversity, finishing leaning to a side or leaning forward, or bloody, or carrying a stick. And they didn't bring hiking poles, but they found a stick and they're using that as a crutch. We've seen all of that, and it's so inspiring.
Great stories, man.
Yeah. And one of the things I'll say is not every race is created equal, right? Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of races where you can go be around great community and run and have an incredible time. But it sounds like there's something very special about this race. And I think part of that has been forged through the experiences that you just described, the passion that you guys have developed for the sport. And you mentioned Amy. For all the listeners, you co-direct with Amy. She's not on camera, but obviously she's a big part of the program here. So huge thank you to her. And really just a thank you to both of you for everything you do. And for the listeners, we'll put in the links. And so you've got, it's A1. I'm sorry. A1.
A1. Yeah.
A1 Ultra events. And then also got a part of Tampa races. We'll put all the links and everything down in there and make sure, because you do plenty of other races. And so check that out. And then also I'll talk to the listeners again and the viewers for just a second is, if this is your first time coming across us, we appreciate you so much. If you're finding value, please share, tell your friends, and go check out Long Haul. But Andy, just thank you so much for what you do and for your time.
You guys are awesome. Like I said, I listened to a few of your podcasts, and I'm really impressed with you guys. And one of the ones I just listened to was the Bob Becker, and Bob and I are good buddies. And what a gentleman he is, and I'll never be the runner he is. I'll never be the race director he is, but I'm so happy to call him a friend. And we had him at Long Haul last year. The mud sadly got to him, and he did not finish, but I think he was, coming off his world record and all that. But I was, he's one of the guys that, even though I've been race directing longer than him, I still feel like he's a mentor to me. He's
an incredible human.
Yeah, we enjoyed that conversation as well as this one. And our motto is just show up. Thank you for giving your runners the opportunity to just show up at Long Haul and the other stuff. But like I said, we'll post the links to everybody watching. We appreciate you so much. And Andy, we will talk soon.
Thanks. And looking forward to seeing you, Jeff.
Yeah, that's right.
Cut. Thanks so much for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed the content. If you haven't already, don't forget to check out our full lineup of podcast episodes that are designed to help you take your next step in your ultra running journey.
So be sure to check the links below, and you can visit our website at theultrarunningsguys.com or download your episodes on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And remember, when in doubt, just show up.
See ya.